Yet another episode of Stand
I love
Up.
the fact that when we're getting ready to do this, that our guest picked up on you trying to pretend you can see without your glasses.
I can see without my glasses.
Oh, please.
If
you could see without your glasses, you would have never dyed your hair that color. Are you going to introduce the guy?
I am natural. My name is Peter Bales. This is Jackie the Joke Man Martling. Our podcast is called Standup Memories. And what a guest we have coming directly from what looks to be his bedroom in New Jersey. Incredible comedian Mike Eagan.
Not only Mike Eagan, and his collection of hats.
His collection of hats.
Oh, yeah.
A tie, a belt hanging from the closet, and I see a pair of crotchless panties, which we'll get to later on in the podcast.
You still wear those?
They're mine. Yes. It just makes it so much easier at the urinal, you know? Just boom, you're right there.
Hey, Mike,
Yes,
what
sir.
year did you start in stand-up?
1820. No, let's see. It started stand-up 1979.
79, right? Right when I started. Good
That's
for
a
you.
Sweet spot for most of us.
That's a great, great.
I didn't get to New York until 81, January of 81. I got to New York, but I was started out in Philly. Yeah.
Started out in Philly and got to New York.
doing radio and comedy at the same time down there.
Right. Now, Mike is also a radio guy. And
when you were doing radio,
guy.
Was it at the same time? Were you like working against John DeBella? Was he your competition, or were you on
No, DeBella came. He was on FM. I was on WPEN AM 950, which at the time was an oldie station. I think now it's a religious foreign language station or something. But I wasn't with DeBella. No, he was there after I was.
Those were the great days. But I think I worked more in Philly than I worked in New York. The days of the Comedy Factory Outlet.
Sure. Yeah.
Comedy Works and Bananas. And Comedy Cabaret. My God, there was all those gigs, and they were so much fun. Jesus.
They're down to two now in Philly. They got the Punchline, which is predominantly a black comedy stand-up club, and we have the
Helium.
What's left in Philly?
Helium.
Yeah.
I can't say that I remember that because years ago, I was doing some kind of autograph show. A guy came up and said, me and my brother are starting a new club in Philly. I can't wait for you to work it. It's going to be called Helium. Never heard from the guy again. I've never been booked there. I can't get across the street with these guys. But that Punchline, it's still the same place on South Street, right?
I don't know. I've worked Helium several times. I never worked the Punchline, so I don't know.
What was it called? I don't know if that's what it was called, but I know I recorded my first CD down there, and that was a great, great club, man. Before it became a black club, it was just killer, you know. When you say black club, it became a predominantly black audience after, I think it had closed down for a while. But that was I
was probably up in New York.
Why'd you move from Philly to New York? A better place to be a comedian?
Well, like I said, I was doing radio and comedy down here, and it was just at that time the natural progression. You know, you'd go to New York or go to LA. So I went to New York. And,
now, what do you remember about what Jackie and I think, agree on this? The greatest comedy club of anywhere at any time in New Jersey. In West Orange, Rascals. What is Rascals to you?
Well, I had my best success at the Rascals down by the shore. I mean, to me, that was the most explosive club. But Rascals in West Orange, I hosted the Rascals Comedy Hour for about a year and a half. I was the host of the show. I think you did it for a while, Jackie. Didn't you?
After you, I followed you there, and Rascals really was the best. But
it was.
The laughs were much more explosive at Rascals by the Shore. They just were. And I don't, it seemed like it was like Rascals was so big and the Shore was the same, only a little packed in a little they would go crazy down there,
Same thing in West, they were laughing coming down the steps. I mean, those shows were always great. You couldn't get a bad show in West Orange or down by the Shore, either one.
We had Danny McKenna on, and he was, chief cook and bottle washer, and he was a pip,
Oh, Dan, the best thing about Dan, he had this, I don't think I ever told him this, but he had this such a thick Jersey accent. When people would come down and he would seat the people, he would have this saying, "Follow me, follow me." He meant follow me. All he would say is, "Follow me, follow me." What the hell? Follow me? What's follow me? But he got just point across, I guess.
To our
He
viewers,
was so level. If the Pope walked down those stairs, he'd say, "You follow me."
Follow me.
to our viewers and listeners, we had Danny McKenna on our podcast,
Oh, really?
and we have a library of our shows, standupmemories.com. You can go and you can see season 1, season 2, season 3. We're now in season 4. Look up our shows with Danny McKenna, the quintessential manager of a comedy club who made that club work, really, I think.
He sure did. He ran that place, man.
And he would tell
Right.
people to shut up. And he was a short guy.
Yeah,
And he
he
told
was-
people 6'4" to shut up. He was not afraid of anybody.
No, he was 5'6", standing on his tippy toes. So, yeah,
And that was early on. That was like 81, 82 or something like that.
yeah.
I remember Rick Messina just come and say, "Hey, we're going to start a show at this basement in New Jersey." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And it wound up being just the greatest, you know.
It was, yeah, and the brothers, of course, all of them.
Magnusons.
The
All of
Magnusons.
the Magnuson brothers.
All except the mysterious guy who never showed up. He was the one brother who wasn't a part of the whole thing. He was a lawyer, I think. And one of the brothers passed, as you probably know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was,
Yeah.
they were all nice guys, but he was
the nicest one.
he was
a
too nice for
really
show
good
business.
guy.
Yes,
Really,
it's
really good guy.
absolutely true. Yeah, he was too nice. He was a good guy.
Hey, Mike, we have a
Yes.
lot of fun on this podcast. You've had so many good shows in your life. Think back about the exceptions when things went wrong. Do you find that funny now? Do you have any shows that went absolutely off the rails? And why'd they go off? Because 99.9% of the time, the shows are great.
Peter does this to we have all these guests that are so good and so talented. And he says, "Tell us about the time you sucked."
Because that's what comedians do when they get together.
And
at the diner.
that's what's interesting. I agree with him. I hate to
Because-
agree with him.
Yes, thank you. That's
Well, I
actually
have to,
the first
in
time.
all honesty, I'd have to say it was the audience's fault. I
Absolutely.
mean, really.
Absolutely.
No, I have. There's been a few times. I was grateful to get out of there without being physically harmed. There were, I think we probably faced that with guys in the audience. You think you're tough, and wanted a physical confrontation. And I was lucky to avoid those, but I ran out of it. There's a guy called the Pickle Man.
The Pickle Man. I know the Pickle Man.
Okay, well,
I feel so out of it.
He's a booker in Philadelphia. And
Well.
he had gigs that kind of went along with his name. At the end, he'd give you your pay and a big jar of pickles.
This
Right.
isn't
And-
Barney, right? This isn't Barney. This isn't Scarpati. This is
No,
somebody-
this is
yeah, this is the Pickle
Pickle
Man. He was more in North Philadelphia area, but he
Yeah.
he devised this thing, a toilet with pedals, and he would pedal a toilet seat and sit on it. And he weighed about 400 pounds and got surgery, and he was down to about 250. And of course, the skin just hangs on like my 600-pound life. And he would come and do these horrible shows, and he would. I've had in his shows, I had people come up on the stage and wanted to, have a fight and stuff. And any gig that we've done where they leave the TV on at the bar.
Oh,
Yeah.
you can't have that.
You know how sick we all are? I'm sitting here listening to you guys describing what is maybe a hell gig of all time. And I'm sitting here so jealous that I can't chime in. Oh, yeah, my time with the pickle guy. I haven't even heard his name before. Now, was this
You
later
wouldn't have-
after I
you
was
wouldn't
son?
have been working for that kind of money, Jackie.
Yes, exactly.
Give yourself some credit.
Much better
So this
gigs,
is after the
Jackie.
Stern show, like this is later
Yes,
80s.
yes, I counted the jar of pickles as part of my pay. All right.
Is he still with us, the pickle man?
Yes, he's back in business, and he's bringing them in.
Bringing him in. He's the
Yeah,
pickle
yeah.
man.
That's just.
He's still booking gigs here and there. I haven't worked for him in, I don't know, 20 years or so, or 15
I
years.
thought you were going to say 3 weeks.
If he called, I'd pick up the phone. I'll tell you that. But yeah, he's still around. What do you got there? But that I was probably the worst, I guess. I mean, I've had some adventures going to gigs. I did a gig with I don't know if you knew Chips Cooney.
Chips
Uh,
Cooney is a terrific New Jersey comedian.
He's one of my best friends. He is so bizarre and off the wall. And anyway, we were going to a job in West Virginia, he and I drove, and it turned out the car that I had purchased from a friend of his had problems with the tank, gas tank, and the trunk. And I opened the trunk up as we got halfway down there, and there was gasoline floating in my trunk. If I had gotten rear-ended, would have been dead. And then we got stopped by the West Virginia police. I was driving, and Chips at the time, he doesn't do it anymore, but he was rather inebriated at 12 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever time it was. And the cop asked us to get out of the car, so we got out of the car. And he's talking to the cop's talking to Chips, and he's obviously polluted. And Chips said, "He's as drunk as I am, officer. He was drinking too." So we were the first guy to defend me, and I wasn't nearly as drunk as he was. And I was drunk, but I wasn't that drunk. They actually took us to the gig in West Virginia. They
Wow.
our escort, and the cops went in and told the people there, if they give you any trouble, call us. And they were pretty nice, the cops in West Virginia. They actually escorted us to our gig, some hellhole in West Virginia. I don't know.
Oh,
He's such a character. I go back so far with him, and every time I tell the story, it takes on the way home today, I'll think of his name before it was Chips Cooney. And it must have been very early on. I drove all the way to the Thunderbird Hotel in Asbury Park or something like that. It was just one of these horrible, horrible gigs. It was lower than Jerry Stanley or Jim Balazzo, so I don't know how I got it. I drove all the way there, and I was staying in the hotel, so I got down to look at the room, and there's a guy on stage with an electric drill, and I'm like, look at that! They're assembling the stage before the show, and then I come down to do the show, and it was him. The electric drill was in his act. Don't ask me how. And what was his real Jim?
His name, his birth name is Don Ippolito.
Don Ippolito.
Don Ippolito. That I will never think of that. And I'm like, I thought you were a repairman. How did an electric drill find its way into anybody's act?
I can tell you, he's got a steady gig now. He works at a place in New York City as an act. It's called the Slipper Room. It's very avant-garde. They have like topless dancers and jugglers, and he does his bizarre stand-up act, and he's there twice a month. He's got a steady gig there, and the things that he does, he's very innovative. But it's an acquired taste. Either you dig it or you don't dig it.
Well, he does his most famous bit
is the magic,
is
right?
the magic where
he's been on lots of shows with that, national shows. America's Got Talent, Drew Carey show. Did a lot of shows with that.
And the idea is that he does bad magic.
Yes.
And acts like
and the thing is, he keeps a straight face. He never lets it be known. He thinks it's his president. He's friends with David Copperfield, close friends. And
I'm very proud. One of his bits of bad magic I gave to him backstage at Rascals. He takes a snow globe, and shows it to the audience,
and shakes it.
Puts a napkin over it, and he shakes it, and he pulls the napkin away, and it's snowing in there.
Right. You'll be happy to know that's still one of his staples. He's still
is it? I gave that to him backstage at Rascals.
The last time I saw him, he was opening at the brokerage. I went down to talk to Otto about maybe someday doing a documentary, and I think Otto's the only person that could follow. I mean, the last thing he did was somehow his pants were off, and he had the crap stain on his pants. I was like, it was
male dancer.
So
he's the world's
over the
oldest
top.
male dancer, and he had all the wires going into his chest to keep his heart beating. He's a very visual kind of guy. Yeah, you're right. He had
So what was that bit? He did a bit about being a retired or an elderly Chippendales male dancer.
Right, that's the one. And he would take off, have the music playing, and he'd slowly undress and take everything off, and he had a big Depends diaper on. at the end.
I
It
saw that.
stayed.
And then he would turn around and it was all with the shit stains on the back.
And he's
I swear, I can't unsee that.
I know,
he was
it's
taking, when he
unbelievable.
was supposed to be elderly and out of breath, and he had oxygen, and he
Right.
takes,
And
and
he still does
tubes
that.
strapped to him. So he's finishes his act at Rascals, and he's pretty inebriated. And he's just limping off the stage, and he gets down and he rolls down the stairs, and he cut his back on a sharp part of the stairs and had to get several stitches. Luckily, it was that he was leaving his act, he was done, and he rolls down the stairs.
2 years ago, he
any
broke
chance, I don't know if I
broke a
ever asked
femur.
this. Were either of you guys at Kelly Rogers' wedding?
I was not.
Kelly Rogers got married, and I knew him, but I wasn't that close with him. But I guess I knew him kind of well from working the Fort Lauderdale comic strip with him.
Yeah.
And I know Bob Woods was there, and Ippolito was there. There was a bunch of comics at this wedding, but Kelly Rogers was older, and not a lot older than us, but he was like the youngest kid so he had very old parents. So the people at the wedding were elderly people. And they said, you guys, everybody should get up and do a little bit. And of course, most of us were very filthy back then. I know I was.
Sure.
So I just went up and tried to take it easy, And Ippolito went up. He must have said fuck 10,000 times. And we were all sitting there like, we were like, and I'll never forget this because somebody said, Don, or I don't think it was Chip Scooney, like, Don, there's children in the audience. And Bob Woods went, fuck it, let them learn.
Yeah.
I can still hear
All
it.
right.
I can still, I'm not
Kelly
we're not
Rogers.
supposed to curse. But
Kelly Rogers, okay, a great guitar act. Associated
yeah.
with Catch a Rising Star, most of all. You can
Yeah.
Google him,
He was-
Facebook him.
he was the MC for many years at Catch a
At
Rising
Catch a
Star.
Rising Star, and the late legendary Bob Woods, a Long Island comedian, who was known as how much do you think he weighed? Over 300.
I would say
Oh,
350,
yeah.
but he would, sometimes he would try to go down and go back
He was
up.
known as the round mound of sound.
When he first started his act, the first 5 minutes were his names. The Lord of the Ring Dings, and he had it was unending. But
He booked this room somewhere in New York. He booked a room actually, and he said, "You play your way out of the room." In other words, you work. If you bomb, that's up to you. I forget the name of the gig. Years and years ago, it wasn't like Betty's Fireside where Betty herself would heckle you.
are you
did
talking
ever
about
work-
Mr. Rips or Dubonnet?
That's it,
Mr. Rips. It was Dubonnaise and then Mr. Rips.
Right. That's the one.
Now-
You play yourself out of the room.
Mike, famously for the comedians in the New York area, Jersey, New York, Connecticut, the worst gig ever is Betty's Fireside.
It seems to be the consensus.
That's the
worst
consensus.
steady
Betty's
gig. I mean,
Fireside.
there were some horrible one-time only gigs, but as far as a regular gig, for $65, you got on Route 180 and you get down to exit 59, get off and get in there and do it. Betty's sitting right there ready to heckle the shit out of you.
And it was
Again, I have never heard anything but what a hellhole,
it was a
crap night, crap gig this is, and I am so jealous that I never worked.
You never worked
because
it?
I can't join in.
now listen, it was a former strip club because there was the bar,
Yeah,
and then
you
behind
perform.
the bar, there were that's where you performed, where the strippers used to
It
perform.
reminded me of the movie the Blues Brothers, where they're singing "Stand by Your Man" and they're throwing shit at you. That's what that room was like. Just throwing shit at you.
It was tough.
Stand by
It
your
was a
man.
tough room.
It was, but Betty paid you, and she was
Got
there.
paid.
I've never even asked anybody, was there an actual Betty?
Oh
It
yeah,
was. It
it
was
sure
Betty's
was.
Fireside.
Yeah, she weighed about 87 pounds, chain smoking cigarettes, and just coughing and laughing. That's
A
what she did.
legendary, truly legendary gig.
Oh yeah, Betty's Fireside.
Now, of course, for all comedians, there's a moment when you say to yourself, I'm no longer going to do rooms where the bar is in the same room with the stage. Because when the bar is in the same room, it's a recipe for noise and really
I
disastrous.
know early on, I think a lot of us make that decision until you get the next phone call.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
wait, no,
That's right.
I did a,
How
I had,
much is it?
I had a show out in the middle of Long Island somewhere, and you might have been there. And Carol Leifer was on the show because she said to me over the years how she remembered that, because this was a horrible bar in Suffolk, and we were set up and we had to do the show. And I didn't know anything about hockey in those days. This is before the East Side Comedy Club and all along the Islanders became our friends. And the game was in double overtime. And the owner said, you got to turn off the TV and do the show. You're not going
Oh, man.
I had to go up and turn off the TV with the guys at the bar watching. And Carol Leifer to this day says, I never saw a pair of balls on somebody, but it was a long ride. We wouldn't have got paid if we didn't do the show.
Carol,
Yeah.
a great comedian, started the comic strip, dated Jerry Seinfeld.
And Peter
Paul Reiser-
Bales.
No, but Jerry,
Rich Scheidner.
and Rich was married to Rich Scheidner, right?
Oh, did they get married?
I think so, yeah. And a terrific comedian. Google her.
She
She's
was.
still around.
They based Elaine from the Seinfeld show
They
on
based
Carol Leifer.
Elaine, supposedly on Carol Leifer. Google
Yeah, she was
her.
on a couple of
I
episodes.
ever heard another really funny guy, Rich Scheidner, really funny guy. He's got a one-man show going now that's great. It's like the story of comedy or something. But after he and Carol split up or got divorced, he had one of the funniest lines I've ever heard. He said, let me tell you folks about getting married. When you're married, here's what it's like when you're married. 1 minute, you're standing, looking into the other person's eyes and saying, I want to spend every minute of the rest of my life with you. And 2 minutes later, you're in the next room saying, how can I fake my death? I've never forgotten that. Wow. And then you get married and it's like, he wasn't far off, you know.
Well, after my third try, I was convinced. Karen and I have been together 15 years, but we decided to forego the marriage end of it. It just didn't work. So
Now, you're playing a lot at 55 and older communities, correct?
yeah, they're young kids.
They're the kids.
I know middle age is a memory.
I got to tell you, though, those shows can be great.
They can, and they can be disastrous.
Remember the 80s. They know what comedy is.
So you go to Florida to do those, or are they?
No,
Or
no, I do them up here. There's certain things I've learned doing these. Don't play rooms that are living assisted rooms or silver care rooms, because those people face the wrong way. They cry in the middle of the show. They don't know where they are. They're sweet, but they wheel them in. They
Right.
have
You want to get the audience that are in those places that got in there on the skin of their teeth, like they're 56 or something.
well, the ones the 55 plus ones can drive and they face forward.
They're us.
Chip Scooney told me the best line to use. He said, "How many people here voted for Roosevelt?" That's
Somebody
a
yelled
good
out, which
line.
one?
yeah,
Teddy.
right. Teddy, of course. Now, yeah, we do. Karen and I do the 55 plus around here. An hour show. I do 30. She does 30. She's more effective than I am, really, because they're mostly women. The guys have died already, most of them. And she just loves to talk and chats with the women. And then I go up and do a little bit, and we go home, and it's 2:00 in the afternoon. So
And
that's
he's
what,
right.
Now, where do you live? You live in Philly
Cherry
still?
Hill. I live in Cherry Hill.
Cherry Hill, right outside Philadelphia.
Yeah, pretty much about 10 miles outside.
He's right. The 55 and over communities, great places.
When are
for
you going to
stand-up.
get us booked there?
We
I
should.
book everything.
We
You
should.
don't book nothing.
We absolutely should do that. But
Yeah, you guys
assisted
should.
living where they're hooked up to all kinds of machines. I did an assisted living
Yeah.
show, and the show was done and it was decent. And as I was walking out to the parking lot, these two guys in white coats grabbed me to take me back to my room.
That's why
How
they
many
call
people
living
like comedy?
That is a
How
bad
did
feel-
caretaker raise your arm? It's too scary. That's great.
Oh man, you are the best. We barely scratched the surface here. So now that you're zooming,
Yeah.
how do you like zooming?
It's interesting. So sometimes you freeze. The camera freezes a little bit. I miss a word or two, but even when I'm listening, I miss a word or two. So,
These guys swear that even if it locks, that what goes to tape doesn't lock. So
We have an editor who does wonders with that, so no
Oh.
worry.
Oh, okay. All right.
But listen, you're never going to stop doing stand-up, are you, Mike?
Well, I'm sort of semi-retired. I think I might have said it before. The days of driving 5 or 6 hours to Pittsburgh, to do a weekend, I'm not into that anymore. Going down to North Carolina to do Myrtle Beach. I don't
right,
wanna
you
get
taper off. No more two
Yeah.
shot. Same with me. I drive somewhere and come back. Even if
Yeah.
it's far, I'll drive, do a show, and come back. But I always say, people say, "Are you ever going to retire?" And I would say, "I'm retired until the phone rings," and then they make
Yeah.
it. You want to do this? So you don't. And usually you say yes, because we all are so afraid if you say no, the phone's never going to ring again.
And I think you have to admit to yourself deep down inside, you really love to do this. You really enjoy it. I mean, I hate every aspect of this business except sitting on the stage and doing the show. And I sit now because if I stand, I might fall down. So,
Okay.
We would like you to do the show again, but next time with Karen. Would you guys do
okay, I'll
that?
tell her. I asked her if she wanted to sit in there. She said, no, this is your thing, but she's funnier than I am. So next time
Well,
we do
next time, we love it some. We've had good shows where we have the spouse of the comedian, and we'll do that with your lovely girlfriend, Karen, who is also a comedian.
Yeah, she is. She's funny. And she also does, she's known as Sabra Kadabra. She does tarot card readings, and she gets a lot of work doing all that stuff, tarot cards, and she can explain it better than I do. But
All right.
All right. So we will definitely do that next time. Ask her if she's up for that.
oh, she would do it. Yeah, I mean,
Mike has reminded me that my language and my thinking has changed now that I'm older in stand-up comedy. I consider now going to the next town from where I live, going on the road.
yeah, exactly. That's the truth,
Mike,
man.
You
Yeah.
are terrific and always funny, and such a pleasure to talk to you, and a real comedy warrior.
I got
Did
to
you see
say
my
one
shirt?
more.
Look at that.
Ah,
Classic Catch a Rising Star t-shirt. I love
You
it.
betcha.
I got to tell you one more thing. Years ago, we worked so many times together at Rascals, and you hosted the
And the brokerage.
comedy hour. Then I hosted the comedy hour. And there was a joke that either you told me or we both knew. And you said, but Jackie, the joke isn't perfect because it breaks the premise just before the punchline. And I changed it just a hair. I'll get your email address, but I changed it just a hair. And it wound up being the closing joke on one of my CDs. And that joke somehow cleaned up enough, got 1.1 million views on TikTok. And it's the joke about the motorcycle.
Tell the damn joke, and we're out of here.
The guy,
That's weird.
the guy is buying a used motorcycle from his cousin. And he goes to pick up the motorcycle and he says to his cousin, my God, your motorcycle is so shiny. It's like new. I know it's used. What's your secret? And his cousin says, it's very simple. I have a tube of Vaseline. And whenever it's about to rain, I coat the chrome with a little Vaseline. That way it doesn't rust, doesn't tarnish, and it looks like new. In fact, you're buying a motorcycle. I don't need this. He gives him the tube of Vaseline. The guy gets on the motorcycle and he's going to his girlfriend's house, his brand new girlfriend. He's going to pick her up and they're going to go to her parents' house and have dinner for the very first time. So they go to her house. She gets on the back of the motorcycle, and on the way, she says, I got to tell you something. My family's a little bit weird. You can't talk during dinner, because if you talk during dinner, you got to do the dishes. He's like, all right. And they get to her parents' house, and the whole lawn is covered with filthy dishes. Kind of strange. And they go up, and on the porch is full of dirty dishes. They go inside the living room, filthy dish. They haven't done the dishes in months. Yeah. They sit down at dinner, the whole meal, nobody talks. It's the end of the meal. He's a little horny and figures nobody's going to say nothing. So he takes his girlfriend and he pops her right there on the dining room table. Nobody says nothing. He's still a little horny. He looks over. Mother's kind of cute. He said, what the hell? He takes his mother and lies her on the dining room table and he bangs her. And he's just about getting done. And he looks out and he sees it's starting to rain on his motorcycle. So he reaches his pocket and pulls out the tube of Vaseline. Her father jumps up and says, all right, I'll do the fucking dishes.
I remember that. Yeah.
Now, what happened was I changed it so the guy had the Vaseline in his pocket, because I think the way it originally was, does anybody have any Vaseline, which pops the premise, because he would
Right. I remember. Yeah.
1.1 million. And so
Well-
I don't, and I can't believe that sailed by the censors on, if they popped her instead of,
Yeah. Well,
all
That's the
right,
key.
all
What
right,
a
I'll
great
do the
show. That's a
stupid
great
dishes,
show. Please share it with all your youngsters out there and your family.
Mike, thank you.
Mike,
hey, my pleasure, guys.
you're the best. Thank you
Thanks,
so
man.
much. Jackie
My
the Joke
pleasure.
Man Martling. I am Peter Bales. This podcast is Stand Up Memories, and we will see you next time.
Warn Karen next time.
I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you.